Alright, wapelekana mbio sana. Ni nani hawa? Ngoja turejee kuangalia kwa kina. Migawanyiko ODM ndio habari kuu kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo, na wana nyuso za wale ambao sasa kila mmoja anatafuta nafasi yake kwenye chama hichi ambacho kiliongozwa na Raila Odinga. Anasema mgawanyiko wa kisiasa ndani ya chama cha Orange Democratic Movement au ukipenda ODM umeibua mjadala mkubwa kuhusu hatima ya chama hicho kufuatia kifo cha kiongozi wake Raila Odinga aliyezikwa Jumapili iliyopita. Habari kamili kwenye ukurasa wa pili. Wanasema ODM ambacho kimekuwa dhabiti kwa miaka mingi cha kumbwa msukosuko kufuatia kifo cha Raila Odinga. Chama hichi kimekuwa kwa miaka 20, lakini sasa bila kiongozi wake Raila Odinga, kila mtu anaongea kivyake, kila mtu anajitafutia nafasi pale. Oburu Odinga ambaye sasa ni kinara wa chama ako pale, pia anasema aliongea na Raila Odinga. Gladys Wanga pia ambaye ni mwenyekiti wa chama hicho. Abdul Swamad Sharif Nasir ambaye ni naibu wa mwenyekiti. Wengine pia wako pale kama Junet Mohamed, Anyang' Nyong'o, Edwin Sifuna, Babu Owino, Simba Arati. Kila mtu anazungumza, kila mtu anasema mimi niliongea na baba akaniambia hivi na hivi ndio tunaenda. Wako hapa kwenye ukurasa wa mbele. Sasa chama ambacho kilikuwa kinasikiza mtu mmoja sasa kinasikiza hawa wote. Migawanyiko ODM wapelekana mbio. Ukiangalia kwenye mitandao ya kijamii, kila mtu anasema yule jamaa atoke, wengine wanaitwa majina ambayo si yao. Hao wenyewe ndani kwa ndani utangoja tuone. Kando na masuala ya siasa ya ODM, kuna vidokezo zaidi. Pigo kaunti ikiagizwa kurejesha fedha, ni kaunti ya Kiambu pale. Kaunti ya Kiambu yaamrishwa kurudisha pesa ilizokusanya kwenye stage tangu mwaka 2018. Habari nyingine, Majonzi, mwili wa ripota ukisafirishwa. Ni mwili wa mwandishi habari Kimani Mbugua wasafirishwa kutoka mjini Mombasa, safirishwa kwa ndege. Aliaga dunia wiki jana. Nafikiri mipango ya mazishi yazidi kuendelea. Kuna habari hapa ya kimataifa. Sarkozy atupwa jela miaka 5. Huyu alikuwa rais wa Ufaransa, apewa kifungo cha miaka 5 kwa kupokea mamilioni kutoka Libya. Inasemekana alipokea fedha za kampeni yake ya urais wakati mmoja, na sasa itabidi akae jela miaka 5. Ingekuwa tunafanya hivi hapa Kenya, sidhani tungekuwa na wanasiasa sahi. Pale juu, afisi ya naibu rais yatumia nusu ya bajeti katika mwaka 2025-26. Ikiwa itadumisha kasi hii ya matumizi ya fedha, ikitimu Machi mwaka ujao, afisi hiyo itakuwa imemaliza mgao wake. Ile fedha zote ambazo zimepewa ofisi ya naibu wa rais tayari nusu, na hatujafika nusu wa mwaka huu. Masuala ya spoti, Chelsea FC wenyeji wa Ajax leo. Chelsea watakuwa ugani Stamford Bridge kukaribisha Ajax Amsterdam. Na wanasema ni masuala ya UEFA Champions League. Jana Arsenal wametandika jamaa wengine wanaitwa Atletico Madrid mabao 4-0. Gazeti la Taifa Leo, tukiendelea, ni habari ile ile ya siasa za ODM ambayo imepewa kipaumbele kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa The Star. An uphill task, Oburu fights to steady ODM. And I mentioned this earlier. You realize now that the face of Oburu Odinga becoming even more prominent on our front pages. He had never occupied the front pages, to be honest. Now, as the interim party leader of ODM, you see he's given prominence on the front page of Taifa Leo. It is his image that is there on the front page of The Star today. An uphill task, Oburu fights to steady ODM. The party is grappling with emerging crises in post-Raila era and the different images of other ODM luminaries who everyone is speaking at cross purposes. Edwin Sifuna, the Secretary General, Deputy Party Leader Abdul Swamad Sharif Nasir, and even Opiyo Wandayi, who's a CS in charge of energy. Kila mtu hapo anasema waliongea na baba aliwacha instructions. Lakini hizi instructions zilikuwa kila mtu anasema instructions zake tofauti. How will Oburu Odinga ensure that ODM remains steady? Why counties could be losing more than 25 billion shillings in revenue every year. That's another story, and they're quoting the control of budgets. The state needs court order to shut rogue websites in new cybercrime law. This is another big discussion. It is part of the 8 bills that, which are now acts that President William Ruto assented to on October 15th, the same day that Raila Odinga died. And it is what features as a front page story on some of the dailies, and we'll get to that. It is one of the big discussions. Some are saying, okay, the president used the fact that there was stories about national mourning, the death of the former prime minister, to sneaking this. But then again, surely, these bills, before they are signed and assented to into law, they are subject to a very long legislative process in Parliament, which involves both the National Assembly and the Senate. By the time it gets to the President, he's just signing into law, something that more than 349 members of Parliament have passed. Why so much criticism against the President? But anyway, that's just me. We'll get to that. Wellington Muzengeza pale juu anaongea kuhusu Raila Odinga, firebrand statesman, Africa must never forget. And you'll realize that there's still a lot of orders, a lot of opinion and commentary still about the life and times of the former prime minister. This will continue for a while, even after finishing the period of national mourning. Wanjiru murder is another big story. Extradition process for Briton's suspect underway, the High Court has been told. That's the Star. Fresh, independent, different. You can get yourself a copy of this paper for only 60 shillings in Kenya, 1,000 shillings in Tanzania, and 2,000 shillings Ugandan money. The Star. Same story on the front page of the People Daily. Why Ruto needs ODM to win 2027 general election. And a very interesting photo, once again, of who? The interim party leader of ODM, Oburu Odinga, seated. And now it's the president, William Ruto, who's consulting him while bending down to actually consult him. That's how important they seem to suggest that ODM is. When you see the president, this should be vice versa, that everyone else consults the president and they actually kneel down or even bend to ask for advice. But now it would appear it is President William Ruto. And this is a picture that speaks 1,000 words. President William Ruto is the one who needs ODM. Why Ruto needs ODM to win 2027 general election matters re-election of President William Ruto given prominence. Will Raila's political orphans chart their own path is another story on page 5, and this is definitely the big conversation. What happens next? To all these people who say they talked to Baba, to all these people who said Baba said this, to all these people who have hung on Raila Odinga's coattails for the longest for their own political survival, in his absence, what happens to them? That story on page 5 of the People Daily. Another person who's featured here, why Kindiki is living on borrowed time as Kenya's DP. That story is on page 6 of this paper, and it says that probably the president will now be forced to pick a running mate for his re-election from ODM, or Nyanza region for that matter. So Professor Kithure Kindiki is counting down 21 months. Will he survive? Borrowed time. That's the People Daily. Same story on the Daily Nation, at least this one mentions the late Raila Odinga. What did Raila say? Because everyone has his own account of what the former Prime Minister, the late Raila Odinga, said. So Orange Party split by wrangles on its 20th anniversary. Factional wars within the ODM party have intensified, with rivals clashing on their political direction decreed by party leader Raila Odinga, who died last Wednesday. The dispute is on the outfit's commitment to the broad-based government and subsequent support for President Ruto's re-election. Twin issues over which each side is conveniently interpreting Raila's word to its advantage. But what was his wish? A story on page 4 and 5. The chairperson of this party, Gladys Wanga, says, the last instruction he left us with, and I remember him speaking at the burial of Dr. Phoebe Asio, he said he made a clear decision to work with Ruto. That is the last standing instruction Baba gave us. But Edwin Sifuna says, Raila said as a party, we must prepare ourselves for the 2027 election. Those spreading other narratives here, Raila has previously asked them, who has told you? We will follow the last standing instruction. So which is the last standing instruction? What did Raila say? Minority Leader Junet Mohammed, he said, Raila told us to remain in the broad-based government. It is on record. Treasury CS says Raila showed us before he died that he wanted us to be in government. Orengo says, I am one of the people who believe we must keep ODM. President Ruto, let us not kill parties. Kisii Governor Simba Arati says, I want to assure ODM members the party is going nowhere. We've just started the struggle. So what exactly did Raila say? That's the question. All these people seem to suggest that they are the ones who interpret correctly what Raila Odinga said as his last instruction to the party before his death last Wednesday. That story is on page 4 and 5 of the Daily Nation. Let's take a look at the inside pages to see if at all there's any other interesting stories. Details of tough balancing act in Raila's funeral plans revealed. We're still taking a look at the last 1 week leading up to the final interment of the former Prime Minister on Sunday in Siaya. And why Kondele residents won't let go. Locals believe that Kondele was Raila's political bedroom. They popularly refer to it as barracks. To be or not to be with Ruto, ODM chiefs differ on fallen leaders' wishes. How police caught suspect in KCSE exam fraud rackets. Even as KCSE begins, cases and reports of cheating or plans to cheat have emerged, and someone, at least one person, has already been arrested, is expected to be arraigned in court. The other story, Maraga takes on Ruto over new draconian illegal laws, and this is a story we'll see on the front page of another paper. All right, on the back page of this paper, Simiyu back from self-exile, vows to punish opponents. This is a national cross-country championships. That's the Daily Nation. We move on to the Standard, and this one takes a totally different route altogether. No mention of ODM, no mention of politics on the front page. Out with freedoms. And they call it midnight laws. So 4 hours after Raila Odinga's death, President Ruto signed 8 controversial bills into law. Measures that critics say betray the very freedoms Raila spent his life defending. Among them is a new Cybercrimes Act, which, while tightening safeguards against online fraud and harassment, hides vague clauses that could muzzle free speech and silence dissent. Former Chief Justice David Maraga has condemned the move as a mockery of Raila's legacy and announced plans to challenge the laws in court. A bit of reference to the former Prime Minister Raila Odinga and what he may or may not have stood for in as far as some of these bills that were sent to are concerned. On the cyber crimes, which is the main focus on this paper, the implications, they say, 1, it criminalizes publishing false digital information, and there's a threat of up to 3 years imprisonment or fines of up to 5 million shillings. There's a vague definition of cyber harassment, which could target activists and opposition figures. State agencies can now block websites or online content without court approval, which will enable shutdowns of critical media and voices of dissent. According to this paper, that act allows police to demand user data from service providers, raising concerns over political spying. Its vague wording and possible retroactive enforcement by the law creates fear, leading to censorship and self-censorship online. Now this, according to this paper, should be the greatest concern. Already, people have gone to court. You've heard the former Chief Justice, David Maraga, talk about the same, and they say these matters will now be determined in court. Cybercrimes Act, as well as the other 8 bills that were signed by the President on Wednesday the 15th, the same day that we received the news of Raila Odinga's death. So on the inside pages, matters exams also given prominence. Exams, desperate students and parents fall for online scammers. So conmen on popular social media platforms promise to sell leaked NEC exams. Both KJSEA, I don't even understand why KJSEA and KEPSEA, there could be even attempts to cheat in those exams. But for KCSE, at least one person has been arrested so far. Yes, cybercrimes law change, violate constitution, petitioners argue, and a petition has been filed in the High Court challenging the Computer Misuse and Cybercrimes Amendment Act, which was signed into law by President William Ruto last Wednesday. But I'm asking you, where were you when these bills, before they were signed into law, were being processed in Parliament? Very elaborate legislative processes, including first reading, second reading, debate, public participation, voting in both the National Assembly and the Senate. Now, once they've been taken and approved and now signed into law, all hell breaks loose. We'll be looking at that. We will have an advocate of the High Court here to tell us more about the legality of this, plus 2 members of the National Assembly to discuss that matter. Finally, matters business. Regulator removes hurdle for crypto insurance cover. That's the biggest story on the front page of the Business Daily. IRA unveils draft rules for virtual assets cover and insurance concerned about crypto hacks, theft and fraud. Kenyans investing or trading in cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin may soon be able to buy insurance cover for hacking losses and employee theft. Interesting. Other stories, property agents face daily fines for hiding home buyers. So property agencies face daily fines of about 10,000 shillings daily for failing to register with the anti-money laundering watchdog, the Financial Reporting Center FRC, in a crackdown on corrupt business people and other criminals hiding wealth in real estate, has said. On the ticker, higher taxes hold key to Kenya's credit ratings upgrade. Elsewhere, consumers brace for fresh charge on fuel and electricity. And finally, equity staff training cost surges to 846 million Kenya shillings. That's a Business Daily. Matters business given prominence there. All right, so those are the dailies. We'll be looking at them with this panel. James Gakuya, MP Embakasi North, Sabina Shege, who's a nominated MP, and Harrison Kenyanjui, advocate of the High Court. Do stand by for that conversation. In a few minutes' time, another even more interesting conversation coming up at 8 a.m. We'll be having Pastor Dorcas Rigathi in studio, redefining the modern girl child. This conversation, Ano Dida talking to Pastor Dorcas Rigathi. Let's take a look at what the cartoonists are talking about today, just to give us an indication of